Blythe is a managing director with TSG Consumer Partners. Blythe, how are you?
Great, nice to see you guys.
Nice to see you as well. So for our guests who are watching right now and are not familiar with TSG, can you talk a little bit about the firm and what it does?
Absolutely. TSG is a leading private equity firm that invests exclusively in the consumer market, branded consumer and retail market, primarily as a growth investor and primarily in partnership with entrepreneurs and founders who have created innovative and emerging brands. And historically, food and beverage have been a real sweet spot for investment opportunities for us.
Yeah, you've had some exceptionally well-known investments, including vitamin water. What are some of the other investments that TSG has been involved in?
Absolutely. In the beverage market, most recently, BrewDog has gotten quite a lot of press as a new investment partnership of ours.
And for those viewers who don't know, what is BrewDog?
BrewDog is a rapidly growing international craft beer business based in Scotland, but with international ambition.
Yep. And in terms of, you mentioned you've been heavily involved in consumer products, including beverage and food. This is is this your first craft beer investment?
No, we have two other beer investments. A craft beer investment in Atlanta in a phenomenal brand called Sweetwater.
Yep.
And then we also have an ownership stake in Pabst, the iconic Pabst.
So what was your interest in getting into beer? You know, from being historically involved in non-alcoholic and food, why get into beer? Well,
it's a good question. I think you might have some inkling as to our interest, but you know, craft beer has obviously been a major trend in the U.S. beverage market that has played out over the last 10 to 15 years. And you know, the nature of consumers gravitating to higher quality artisanal products with personality and meaning and purpose to them is very much something that was you know, evident in the craft beer market, and so we looked for growth opportunities. When we struck our partnership with Sweetwater, it was the dominant southeastern craft beer brand, and I really emphasize the word brand because while there's some great craft beer products out in the market, not as many companies have built a tremendous brand that represents something that transcends product portfolio and really speaks to a community of like-minded individuals.
And I guess in terms of the size of companies that TSG is looking for right now, can you give us some insight into that?
We recently raised two new investment funds, and the reason we raised two funds was to give us a very broad range in terms of size. So we have a smaller fund that's designed for equity checks or investments in the range of $10 to $50 million, and then we have a larger fund that's designed for much larger investments north of $50 million.
Awesome.
In terms of, no, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
Which allows us to make investments in a wide range of different size businesses, including up-and-coming emerging brands.
Well, that was going to lead to my next question. In terms of categories in the non-alc space and in food as well, you know, what are you looking at? What's exciting TSG right now? What's caught their interest?
You know, there's so much going on in beverage in really a broad scale you know, movement away from soda, and that's how we really characterize our interests, our soda alternatives that are, you know, obviously much healthier for you, lower calorically, but still provide, you know, refreshment in a way that soda had historically. So anything that really represents a great alternative to soda is compelling to us in the beverage category. And in food, you know, still snacking continues to be probably the biggest breadth of opportunity. We have noticed some really neat innovation occurring in the frozen aisle that is definitely, we think, got potential to reshape that part of the grocery store.
Frozen as far as like meals, confectionery stuff, what's other
you
stuff?
know, it ranges, but you know, just better for you, a much higher quality product than what the historical incumbent offering has represented.
One of the interesting things about your recent investments, again, they've been a little bit more on the beer side. And as you noted, you have investment funds that are focused on emerging food and beverage companies. You know, Why was there sort of that lull, I guess, in terms of investment in food and beverage brands?
Well, markets kind of come and go, and we're always looking at high growth companies, and it really just kind of depends on where your opportunities emerge. It's not for lack of interest in the category. It has gotten a lot more competitive, for sure, in the case of earlier stage food and beverage investing, but we've got several things we're quite interested in that very squarely represent emerging brands in food and beverage, including non-alcoholic beverage, that we're actively pursuing and excited about.
Awesome. Yeah, you were deeply involved in the BrewDog deal. I want to go back to that a little bit. You talked a little bit about Sweetwater and what interested you in them, in that brand, being a leader in the Southeast. In particular, when it comes to BrewDog, where did you see the real value of that company? We, of course, are watching all the trends that are playing out, and craft beer is really just beginning to unfold internationally. So when you look at the low penetration rates of craft beer to the broader beer markets in very large markets like Europe and Asia, and then you look at the growth rate of craft, it's hard not to expect that it will continue to take share. When we considered that backdrop to a phenomenal team in the form of BrewDogs, a management team and founders, and a strategy to be successful in a wide range of different markets with what we thought were very thoughtful, meaningful strategies. It was very clear to us that this company has designs on really pioneering the international craft beer movement, and that is exactly what we try to align with our emerging brands that are really pioneering new markets. Another well-known investor in the beverage industry is First Beverage Group. First Beverage Ventures has invested in a lot of non-alcoholic brands. They recently invested in their first alcoholic brand, or first spirits brand for that, in a mezcal brand called Gem and Bolt. What's TSG's interest in the craft spirits category?
Like all things craft, for the same reasons consumers gravitated towards craft beer, we think it's very interesting. It's a harder place for investors to play, to be honest, because a lot of these brands, have to incur major losses in order to really get their brand out in the marketplace, and are typically acquired by strategics before there's really an interim step and deploy capital against an inflection curve. And the valuations that strategics can pay at 10 times revenue typically for spirits brands are just not compatible with an investment group's hurdles as well.
Very interesting stuff. Well, I got to ask one more question. You and Dan Costello are both here from TSG. What do you think of the event, and what's your interest in seeing some of the innovation here, or what do you think of some of the innovation that you've seen here?
It's just such a great forum to bring together all these emerging brands with really distinctiveness in their particular offering, and just the topics for discussion ranging from e-commerce to what we'll hear this afternoon from Fresh Direct are all things that I think are very much on people's minds. And in particular, direct-to-consumer can be very challenging when you consider the nature of these products in and around bulk and refrigeration. Yet at the same time, these are brands that are being discovered, and consumers want to try them whether or not they're local to them or not.
Right. Blythe, we're out of time, but this has been a great conversation.
All right.
Thanks so much for being with us on the lounge. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and congratulations on a phenomenal event.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.